Big news, Raptors fans. We're graced with the majestic presence of our fourth compatriot, Kyle Brickman. I welcome to the show, Kyle. It's been a long time since you and I have chatted.
It's been a month. I'm never coming back, man. This is the worst game I've ever watched.
Yeah,
This is horrible.
you're bad
But it
luck,
is it
maybe.
is
I don't
nice to
know.
be back. And exactly. I feel like I'm to blame almost. And the Raptors did have a nice little fake comeback at the end, which is kind of a classic. I feel like I never left.
Yeah, that was. I mean, yeah, we got 6 minutes of entertainment in the entirety of the game. The only other entertaining aspect of it, really, is to watch Zion have full control over the game, and they talked about that in the broadcast. Is that with Ingram and McCollum out, this was just the Zion show, and it was the Zion show. He was truly unstoppable. I really hoped that coming into this game, if OG could slow Zion down, it truly would have been the stamp of Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, like it's not realistic to expect OG to stop Zion, but if he could have, that really would have just been the Defensive Player of the Year, like for show. And it wasn't the case. He couldn't stop him at all. And who really can? I don't know.
Yeah, the
But
Zion show was I like even as a Raptors fan, the Zion show was that's like Emmy worthy. I'd watch the Zion show. That was
yeah,
just a spectacular performance.
yeah, that was
And
the silver lining in an otherwise complete slaughter. New Orleans beats Toronto 126-108, but really, this game was over towards the end of the second quarter, I would say. And there was no looking back. By halftime, it was 74-47. So that tells you right there. They had 40 in the first quarter, 34 in the second quarter. Better second half, but again, just too little, too late. Kyle, any thoughts on why we completely shot the bed tonight?
um I think like we mentioned earlier, it's Zion related. Like he just crushed the Raptors in every single way. You can't guard the guy one on one. You try to trap him like in the corner or up top. He they had a moment where they tried to trap him in the corner and he just forced his way to the baseline. Like I don't around OG, he just like willed his way around a trap, which was really crazy. And he does that all the time. And then you try to trap him off the pick and roll or even pre-rotate to him. He's a good passer. He made a few like really nice passes tonight. And even if they didn't result in assists, like I know he finished with only 5 assists, but he had at least like 5 more passes that set up completely wide open shots that are like the secondary or tertiary assists. So it was really just like it was just like complete inability to contain Zion. And then I'm sure you'll mention this, but they just got crushed at their own game. The Raptors did. Like the Pels like out Raptored Toronto. They turned them over. They killed them on the glass on both ends. They seemed like to be physically dominating the Raptors, which is something that I'm not used to seeing out of this Raptors team. I don't think many Raptors fans are. Like, when's the last time you watched a Raptors game and thought like, man, the Raptors are the lesser of these two teams athletically. It is a lesser of these two teams effort wise. Like it's been years.
Yeah, in my head while I was watching this, I'm like, thank God New Orleans should be in the Eastern Conference. Thank God they're not. And we only have to run into
Yeah,
these guys every once in a while. But
yeah. From a
yeah,
geographic
Zion,
perspective, if they
yeah,
bring in
exactly.
Seattle,
Yeah, then New Orleans might get bumped, or Houston, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, the Zion challenge was interesting. We didn't really double him right away like we had before with other creators, which made sense, I think. Like he's less elusive. Um, like he's not a guard, so he's less elusive when above the arc, and so there's no sense trapping him. When we did trap him, though, he like squirmed free multiple times, right? And Jack mentioned this: like if you're going to double, you have to absolutely ensure that he can't sneak by you. And if he does sneak by you, it's got to be the long way around. It can't be the direct way to the hoop, which he did. And it's part of Zion's like incredible athleticism is he sneaks by you like he's the shifty guard. And shifty, really, he is because he's coming downhill, but then he's also avoiding help side and slithering through double teams or whatever else is happening in the paint. And like you said, he's a great passer too. So uh, and incredible. Like he's just an incredible player. But I think I do think Toronto defensively just like wasn't locked in like they were with Cleveland. And like those doubles are the kinds of things like letting those doubles go are good examples of that. But from an athleticism point of view, you're right. We ran into a carbon copy of us, except they're bigger and stronger. And the Raptors are all about winning possessions, like you said. So they don't turn the ball over a lot. They steal the ball a lot. They do a decent job of defensive rebounding, and then they smash on the offensive rebounding. Well, when you go to the stats, we had 3 offensive rebounds tonight. New Orleans had 12. We had 12 steals, and New Orleans had 10, but I would say several of those were in the fourth quarter. And then in turnovers, we had 16, and New Orleans had 20. So we did start to push them a little bit in the latter half, but the rebounding, like you said, really killed us today.
Yeah, it's just the blueprint that the Raptors have been like living off of just kind of got reversed, like turned on them completely. And this is this was tough to watch in part because it was an ugly game, and the other part being like this is how teams feel when they play the Raptors. Like, just is this what we do to people? Is this how people feel when they play this Raptors team? Like, it just couldn't get anything going. And yeah, the defense was bad, and it looked like kind of shaky mentally, like there were lapses, and then just physically outperformed. But the offensive end was not nice either. It wasn't like this is a super high scoring affair. Like the Raptors shot 48% from the field, like less than 30% from three. They, like you mentioned, they turned the ball over a lot, and they just couldn't get any of that. Like the Raptors' offense is already a little ugly at its stretches, and they make up for it by winning possession battle. Like you get all those offensive rebounds, you get all these second chance opportunities, and just like when those dry up, when that's not an option, this is a really, really difficult offense to watch. And it's odd because they opened the game. Siakam opened the game with 9 straight points, and I think like just based on like the feed, I was like, there was a lot of hubris on the feed about like how tonight was going to go, and it really went downhill. I think that was maybe the highlight of the game. Siakam's 9 straight points, and basically went immediately downhill from there.
Well, and I wanted to get to that is that like they went away from him. So he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He was 5 for 8 in the first quarter, and he ended up with 16 total shots. So he took half of his shots in the first quarter. And it's maddening because, Pascal is our superstar. We should be going through him and until New Orleans has to absolutely counter. And I think New Orleans adjusted to some degree, but I didn't see anything that suggested that we couldn't go back to Pascal over and over and over again. And what really happened is that other guys kind of took the ball out of his hands, right? Like, and you can see a distinct difference between when Pascal has the ball versus somebody else like Freddie, who really struggled tonight, and B, or Scotty, and B, when the ball is not moving when one of these other guys chooses to go into isolation. And those I think those two things to me really stood out tonight was that we took the ball away from Pascal and we didn't move the ball. There was a lot of just like one-on-one stuff. And then the odd time we did go back to Pascal or we did move the ball, you had OG in the corner for an open 3. You had Freddie hitting his one. No, it wasn't Freddie. I thought Freddie hit one. Maybe it was Gary early on, or Scotty maybe. Somebody hit an open 3 on a drive kick and swing, right? Like the contrast is just so evident to me. And yet these guys just continually are trying to force things in a very unnatural way.
Yeah, Scotty kind of baffles me at times because there are moments like, especially early in the game, where the Pelicans will go zone. He'll catch the ball at the nail and just like take a look at the hoop, zero intention to score, and like turn his back to the basket and try to like post up, or we'll just kick the ball at the corner. It's like, man, take that shot right there at the nail. You catch the ball at the nail and shoot it. He refuses to do that, and then the next possession he'll like walk the ball up and will like walk into a 3, which is not his shot, which is not within the flow of the which is not within the flow of the offense. It's just odd. It's weird the way the kid hunts his shots, and I think we'll get to him a little bit more later, but I felt Fred was kind of the same way. Like Fred, he's didn't really have many like wide open opportunities tonight, like and swing stuff, like weak side stuff, but he's forcing.
Yeah. Yeah. I lost you there, so I'm going to interject. But yeah, Freddie was 1 for 8 from the field, 0 for 7. He did have 6 assists, but it's one of those nights, and like you see this with Gary time to time too. It's like they're just forcing shots over and over again, and it's funny. Like Shaq on TNT last night was just like, what you got to learn, kids. This is a teaching moment. Is that when you're missing shots, you just got to keep shooting them. And it's just kind of like, definitely didn't think that was going to be the punchline. I thought it was going to be like, when you're missing shots, get to the 10, or like get to the free throw line, or like create for others. And, I think that's Gary and Freddie don't really do that. They just try and shoot themselves out of funks. And when they both are struggling, although Gary turned around again in the latter half of the game. Oh, we lost Kyle too. That's when he started hitting his shots. But early on, all of these 4 shots were just kind of killing us. And we'll live and die with the 3. That's kind of how it goes. But I just think there's so many more options. You see Freddie running a pick and roll and finding Thad on the roll, or finding Koloko on the lob. And like, I think there's better ways to get Freddie integrated into the offense rather than just having Freddie hoisting from 40 feet. But regardless of all that, hey Kyle, welcome back. What I do, another thing I wanted to point out, and this will kind of tie.
Is that me?
Probably. I'm too bald. Well, I'm a millennial too, so but whatever. The one thing I will, to tie the poor offensive effort with Zion together, is I feel like the best way we could have attacked Zion or defended against Zion is attacking him on the offensive end. Same with JV. Like there was one play where OG went at Zion and he got by him, and I think he kicked it out or something. But I just think that would have been a better way. Or it demonstrates that again, we're not being calculative on the offensive end. Calculate on the offensive end, and B, that we're or just it's just proving that we're not being calculated on the offensive end. Like I would have liked to have attacked Zion a lot more, get him tired on the defensive end, get him into foul trouble, make JV uncomfortable, right? Like pull him out. There was just no thoughtfulness when it came to the offensive end.
Yeah, and it's actually even more inexcusable when like the blueprint with JV was established, like so much so that you had to move him off of your team because you didn't think you could right. you could set up a defense in the playoffs that worked. Like you literally shipped this guy out. I guess like whatever part of it was doing what you need to get Marc Gasol, but like who JV is. He should be at the 3-point arc trying to chase guys around and trying to navigate screens. At least force them to drop, and then you can get stuff out of that. Like it's like, okay, fine. If they're going to play drop with JV, sure, but at least make them do that. He's just hanging out in the paint. Like he barely worked. And I agree, Zion, like, it's overplayed to talk about like his health and conditioning and stamina all the time, but I don't think that he still doesn't really have the body to be playing like however many minutes at a high level on both ends of the floor, especially if he's being attacked constantly at one end of the floor. But the problem is kind of like they just didn't have 5 guys that you can like really trust running an offense like with the ball in their hands. So they're Zion's easily hideable. Like you can place Zion like in a corner or something because the Raptors seem to refuse to involve the guy that Zion is guarding. So what are you even supposed to do?
Yeah, and I mean they had 3. I guess Trey Murphy played pretty well.
Very well.
I don't know. I think like we could have. Herb Jones obviously couldn't slow Pascal. I think there just could have been better ways to attack this offense. It doesn't help that we're missing shots, and then they get into transition, and you can just kind of see the momentum like fall away. But it's just once again, I just question like what's our what are our offensive tactics in this game? And I think that sometimes falls to the wayside. And I will, so we started Scotty tonight. Thad kept the start and Gary came off the bench. And I know in the chat, everybody's kind of complaining about Scotty, and he didn't have a great game. He was 1 for 7. He did have 5 assists, but he had 3 turnovers. It was another lackluster game from Scotty. I do think, again, though, running him with the bench unit is not the worst idea. There was a lineup where it was Scotty, Koloko, Gary, Wancho, and Boucher. And it's just like, it's the same kind of idea with Zion out there. It's like, okay, Scotty, this is your unit. Go run it, And I have to check the plus minus with that unit. I don't know how it ended up, but I just think that with this starting lineup and Scotty, it seems like he feels like he's being relegated, right? Like he's being limited in what he can do, and he seems frustrated. Yeah, and so I think like there's a lineup structure thing here going on too.
Yeah, but I agree with you, but there's certain element of like it's time to perform when the keys are like in your hand then. And I've been Scotty's biggest supporter, but you're right, he did not in any way like really take control or at all when he was running the bench. But I will say, silver lining, Gary did. So maybe Scotty's like passivity is just more so to do with the fact that those bench lineups he's tied with Gary, and Gary did take 20 shots. He scored 35 points. He had a good night. So it could be in part that as well. Because that really was Gary's offense when Pascal was out. But I will say, Thad was basically a non-factor tonight.
Yeah.
I think Gary has to be in the starting lineup. It's weird to me that they actually went with Thad tonight. I get that Koloko's kind of buried at this point, but it just like looking at the heads on the TSN like lineup board, I was like, the matchups just didn't look right. Like it's like just something wasn't adding up. Thad was not the guy to cover JV. That was obvious. They got some demolished on the glass. But it's one of those games where they just didn't have an answer for the Pelicans, so it's hard to determine like what the optimal starting lineup is, because like it seems in retrospect the Raptors are basically doomed no matter who started. Like they just did not have an answer for this team, and it's depressing to say, but like it's almost like who cares who started. This might have been inevitable.
Yeah, I mean, we're nitpicking here, but that's what we do in the wrap up because we talk about this all the time. I actually just would have probably started Kem Birch, and I think again this attests to the lack of imagination from this coaching staff. Like, I just think you've got to look at who you're playing, what their personnel is, and how you're going to adjust. Koloko's too skinny to F with Valanciunas. I think Kem would have been just like a nice, he's dependable on the defensive end. With Valanciunas, you kind of know what you get. And we just needed a body out there. I think you're right. Thad's was too slow and undersized. He can't be both.
Yeah.
And
tough
with Cleveland,
combo.
right? Like with Cleveland, that wasn't an issue. But with a bigger team like this, I think they could have adjusted. But any other positives you wanted to point out?
I thought Siakam's start was really encouraging. He's been out. He looks healthy. And whatever the lineup in that late run, the Gary OG, Pascal, Wancho, which was shocking, and Boucher, that lineup actually had a nice little run. And I think I was pretty satisfied about the spacing. I was pretty satisfied about the way they communicated defensively. Like most of those guys have played together for a while, so it makes sense. But Wancho kind of fit in rotations wise. And I think that might be something they should be running a little bit more. That actually looked like a cohesive lineup. There's no guard, which is kind of okay when you're there's no, I guess, lead guard, I should say. There's no one, because Gary is not a point guard. And it's fine, like, in a way, because we trust Pascal with the ball in his hands as a primary creator. So I like that lineup a lot. I think that should be something they run with in the future. I actually thought for a moment there, like, what did they cut it to? They cut it to 11. And for a moment there, they could have got it to single digits with 10 minutes left. It looked really good. It was a good sweat. Obviously, nothing came of it. But I thought that was a nice little lineup. It was a good run.
Yeah. Say the lineup to me again.
It was I don't even know how to order this. I guess I'll order it by height. Like Gary, OG, Pascal, Juancho, Boucher,
Yeah.
or
Yeah, I
Juancho,
really like
Pascal,
that
Boucher.
lineup too. So the only guy that played more than 20 minutes who was a plus was Wancho at +2. And I have advocated for him to remain in the start. There was a question from the viewers about who should be in the starting lineup, and Otto Porter Jr. would maybe be the guy when he's back, but Wancho makes a lot of sense, and keeping Scotty and Gary, or at least just Gary. And this kind of addresses Erica's question about wouldn't Scotty be choked coming off the bench? Like, yeah, but he's a sophomore. Like, at some point you've got to check your ego and understand that, like, when you're not playing well, you kind of fall down the hierarchy. And I think, to your point, like, Wancho and Thaddeus most of the time really fit. Like I said on Monday, they grease the wheels of this offense, right? Like they move well. Wancho cuts well off Pascal and other guys. OG found him, or he finds guys, like he found OG on that back door. Like, I just think Wancho's kind of done everything we've asked of him, and it gives us size. We don't lose that much defense when he subs in for Gary. So, but yeah, Phoenix or Litmus mentioned Delano. I thought Delano played well. It was nice to have him back after missing some time with illness and ankle. He might have been a nice little spark plug to rely on. They took him out pretty early, even though he was playing well. Yeah, so few bright spots, but Coloco's 3 for 3, whatever. He also, like, was out of
It's the
place
bottom
at
of the
times.
barrel here.
Yeah.
We're really
Yeah,
scraping
we're
here.
really stretching.
Look, yeah, it's hard to come on after a loss like this, which is just so demoralizing and be complete doomers. But this was ugly, and it was ugly basically from one of the you said the second quarter. I'd say like late first, to be honest. It's like ugly for like 30 minutes of game time. So it's tough, and there'll be nights like this. I think it's frustrating to see the Raptors be dominated in such a way. Ultimately, this is an off night, and they're not going to turn the ball over like this constantly. I mean, honestly, like, the turnovers are the biggest thing. Their offense is almost never good, like elite good, but they just get so many shots that it makes up for it. And at this point, like, when they're turning the ball over, they're not offensive rebounding. The games will look like this, and I just don't think that this is a blueprint that the other teams can replicate against the Raptors. They just don't have the personnel. There's maybe two teams in the league.
Yeah, totally. And all teams have these, and it's a road game and blah, blah, blah. Like, it's not doom and gloom, but I mean, you do want to see resilience from a team like the Raptors have. There's enough veteran presence and skill here that they should overcome these droughts and should overcome these momentum killers and bring it back. And, like, this is exceptionally bad in the sense that by the second quarter, the game was over. And that's pretty unforgivable, because I have expectations of this team, or high expectations of this team, So I think that's why I'm so, like, negative. One little observation I had, which was interesting, when Scotty threw the ball away, and two things. One, Scotty threw the ball away, and they had to lay up, and then Scotty has to inbound on the baseline, and Boucher turns around, hanging his head, and just walks away. Yeah. He knows he's the only guy there for the inbound, and it doesn't matter because there's only 0.1, so it's literally impossible for anybody to heave anything. So it's almost like he was punishing Scotty. He's like, you're just going to get the turnover here no matter what. Don't love the body language of that exchange.
No.
At
I think
all.
there was a lot of talk about Scotty's body language in general. Like, Boucher is like sort of typical, like, has been scrutinized for his body language. Maybe not like by his coach or anyone that matters, but by like us and people online. But Boucher's, it's kind of expected. Scotty has had tonight, he had some pretty ugly body language stuff going on, like some pretty concerningly ugly body language stuff going on. Like threw the pass to Wancho in the corner and then got mad. Like threw a pass like a million miles an hour
A
at a guy's
terrible bounce
knees,
pass to
at a guy's
Wancho.
knees, and then get mad at him for
Totally.
missing the pass. He nutmegged him and then got
And
mad
he
at
got
him for
mad at
missing the pass.
Wancho. Yeah.
And yeah, a couple other things like that. And I think like whatever, he's a kid, but there is something to be said. You know, these are the reports by the people who loved him, like Thorpe and elsewise out of college, is like the team goes, if Scotty goes emotionally, like if Scotty's not on in a practice, the practice is bad, Scotty's effort is low, then the team's effort is low, and that could be the case. He is like, he's young, but he is like, you know, an emotional leader in that locker room. He's one of the faces of the team, and he did not look very mature tonight. Did not look like he was super engaged, like he cared about winning this game. And it's not like I'm forgiving of him because he's young and the NBA is a long season and he's struggling a little bit and he's in his second year and he's not meeting maybe the expectations that he sets for himself or elsewise, and it's just an ugly game in general. But that was not impressive.
Yeah, I mean it's been something that's been ongoing, and you know, like I think in the older NBA times, these guys would, you know, be checked a little bit more by the Sam Mitchell types. And I'm not advocating for that necessarily, but I do think some tough love is due for Scotty, just because like the emotional ups and downs are not necessarily like acceptable. And yeah, I don't know. Whatever. It's not the biggest deal. And I agree he's young and stuff, but I just like have high expectations from him. Like, where's that dynamo energy Scotty that's just like doesn't give a F, defense, full court press, like I'm gonna like you know, and that's really gone away in the past or in the last little while. And I don't know if it's injury or exhaustion or frustration, but it's just not there. And I think that's why we're disappointed, right? Like and it's such a huge part of our team is his.
We have expectations. Emotionally, we have expectations.
Yeah.
Like I want him jumping up and down and like tapping his head. I want him like doing like really, really stupid stuff, like, you know, turning around on a fast break and dunking, like looking at the guy. Like I want that kind of stuff. Where's that? Where's the joy? It's like
exactly
when that sort of energy, that like sort of mania, isn't in a positive sense. It doesn't translate as like positive manic stuff. It's depressive. It's really sad.
Yeah,
it's like
totally.
it's toxic. So, you know, that sort of intensity, and it just comes across as hubris when he has that sort of like energy in a sad way.
It's a good point that it has big swings, but yeah, that positive energy can kill another team's momentum, right?
Absolutely.
Or it can like lead the charge back, and so that's why we need it. And he, in some ways, he is the emotional leader of this team, right? Because actually, Boucher might be it right now. Pascal's slowly becoming it, but like, there's no one that vocal or loud on this team, and Scotty could be that.
Yeah, the sort of like who you traditionally assume are the emotional leaders in the locker room are guys who are basically like too chill to fulfill that role. Like Pascal is just so relaxed. Same with Freddie. Same with OG. Same with Gary to a certain extent. Like these guys are just like they're very, very calm guys, and they don't have, which is good, and it's good to have a calming presence. But they're not going to get you fired up.
Clapping.
Yeah. You know, they're not going to get you fired up in the same way Scotty does, and that's Scotty's brilliance. That's like part of what makes him an excellent player. And ultimately, like, you know, we're not in the locker room, even if we hear like even if we're reading more reports than anyone else, like no one knows Scotty better than his teammates and the coaching staff, etc. So it's this is all speculative. But
it's fine.
I'm only going just based on what I see.
It's just what we're seeing on the floor. By the way, that Freddie technical, it was bad, but you do know that he has some of the strongest hands in the league. So what we think is just a clap might have been like an eardrum shattering, bass drum in the ref's ears, you know,
or maybe with like the small attendance in New Orleans, it was like could have been the first clap all night.
Yeah, the acoustics in there just like reverberated across the.
Yeah, and the ref wasn't. You're on like a weird.
I know.
Communicative. Anyway, yeah, it could have been just like so quiet in there that it was ear shattering. Unbelievable that team, a winning team with a superstar can't pack an arena on.
I know.
On
not
a
only
Tuesday
a superstar,
night.
but like a
exciting one. This
Well,
isn't Chris
just
Paul.
a type that has never been seen in the NBA ever. Period. Like it's a spectacle. It's it's not just a superstar, and I think that seeing it on TV is like amazing. I can only imagine in person. One last observation I'll say is Delano Banton had a great 2-for-1 in the second quarter. He literally got down the floor off a made bucket in 3 seconds and lays it in. Then New Orleans comes back. Something happens. I think they miss. We go down. Boucher dribbles the ball. I just can't get over how bad this was. He dribbles the ball. None of the Raptors are in the offensive side of the court. He's on his own. He takes like a one dribble step back with 12 seconds left in the quarter, fadeaway jumper, hits it. But then, of course, like it's literally the worst shot you could possibly take, not to mention that it leaves 12 seconds on the floor. And then Dyson goes back down, gets a layup, and ties it. So it totally destroys the point of the 2-for-1. I thought that one was just very funny and like kind of a classic Boucher moment.
Yeah, they need like a term for that, like they call it like a 1-for-2, like spoiling, handing the other team a 2-for-1 opportunity when they shouldn't. Like the other team takes a shot at like 18 seconds and they come down and like just give the team another possession. It's ridiculous.
It was pretty bad. Let's move on unless you have anything else to say.
No, I'm happy. I'm very happy to move on.
Okay. Well, I think this is a good time to introduce our brand new sponsor, Kyle. We've been waiting to announce this for a while. We all just got our supplies, so to speak. So without further ado, we are now sponsored by Manscaped. If everybody is familiar, great. If you're not, how do you describe Manscaped, Kyle?
It's like I suppose like a male health company, grooming. I don't know.
Yeah.
This is big time though. These people should be familiar with Manscaped. This is like a huge sponsorship.
Yeah. So if those of you unfamiliar, I think it's mostly something they do for men. So it's helping you with that nether region. We got some anti-chafing lotions, some trimmers. I'm wearing their boxers right now, the anti-chafing material, which is kind of nice. So I'm sitting in an office chair feeling all like, slippery, which is nice.
I heard Oren wore the t-shirt out to his date tonight.
Oh, yeah, classic. Yeah, he probably got all freshened up, using all that Manscaped. So anyway, if you're interested, this is a good time. Purchase something for a gift for a friend, for a partner, for a father, whoever doesn't like chafing. You can go to Manscaped and type in the promo code WRAPUP and you'll get a 20% discount. It'll look good for us because they're our new partners. And so yeah, we're gonna do Manscaped. No. Well, we can't take away from the Taxman. We're going to have to work on a Manscaped promo. But for now, yeah, this explains why I'm so perky. Is because I'm like, slipping and sliding in this chafe-free zone. I'm going to come up with so many more Manscaped references. I can't wait. So anyway, check out Manscaped if you're into that kind of thing. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I will say it's basically gender neutral. I mean, it's just the razors, and they're good razors.
True.
So I don't even think it needs to be Manscaped. It could be like
no, they really emphasize testicles though. Like
that's true.
All
that
of
is true.
like the box is all about your balls, and it's all about like scrotum this, scrotum that, which I'm here for. I'm surprised. Now I'm criticizing Manscaped. Whatever.
No,
I'm surprised that there's an industry for this, to be honest. But getting the product and being able to use it, I now understand why it exists. But I do agree that there is no gender identity around this stuff. Anybody with a crotch could use this stuff. So anybody, yeah, I encourage you to purchase this, whatever your identity is, because no one likes chafing. I can tell you that much. Now we're going to segue right to our other promo. I got to figure out how to do this better, but we're going to go with the Can-Am Taxman of the night. Kyle, having you is a rarity, so I'm going to give the honors to you to choose a Can-Am Taxman of the night?
I think it has to be Gary. I mean, I would have thought Siakam would have been a lock for it based on the first 3 minutes of game time, but like I think Gary is really the only performer tonight that like moved the needle at all. Even Siakam, like it's not like he had a disappointing rest of game, but he was pretty quiet. If you consider like 9 points in the first 3 minutes or 3-4 minutes and finishes the game with 23, like he he kind of quieted down, and Gary picked it up when it actually mattered. Not that it really mattered at any point beyond the second quarter, but like he did, he was part of that run. He was knocking down open shots, and this is a good sign for him. He gets moved to the bench and immediately responds in pretty much the most resounding way possible.
Yeah.
And I think defensively, like I don't know if I saw great strides on that end. I know that's what Nurse is looking for, but that can be forgiven. To be honest, not a single Raptor was impressive on that end tonight. So frankly, he's excused. If no one's playing defense, Gary can't be held to that standard. Gary should be like, the fifth most engaged defender on the team, not the first. And that's
Totally.
a win for him.
He did have his 3 steals. I mean, that doesn't necessarily indicate good defense, but at least he's in there causing a ruckus. Gary Trent Jr., 12 for 20, 6 for 11 from 3, which is really nice to see. He got to the line 7 times, and that was something he did early as well, which was attack. And this is a thing with Freddie that we're seeing more of, and it's good to see with Gary, and I'd love to see it with Scotty. Is like, we got to get easy buckets when we can, and drawing the foul, attacking the lane is just good. It's good business for the offense, especially a half-court offense as poor as ours. So that's always good to see. Other than that, his stat lines is 1, 1, 3, and 1. This is a pretty standard Gary line.
That's the line of
Tim Bontemps, Zach Lowe was talking about how there's this offensive shooting guard that might be the next obsolescence, essentially. He was saying the offensive power forward, Julius Randle, Domantas Sabonis, those guys, you can't win with them. And he's suggesting that the shooting guards are Hero, Poole, maybe
Gary.
Maxey, McCollum, and he's like, maybe you can't win with these smaller offensively minded guards. And immediately my mind came to Gary. And he does fall kind of within that group. I think he's less talented than those guys, but he potentially could play better defense. And so I think if he really wants to get paid again, he does have to become a more disciplined defensive player, because I think teams are finding out that they just can't pay the big bucks to these these guards who aren't going to hold their own on defense.
Yeah.
And I didn't say you can't win with Maxey.
I was about to address that as well.
I was saying that first of all, they didn't win with him, but I'm just saying that if the suggestion is that if you want to run deep, you can't have too many defensive liabilities, and these offensive guards, it's an automatic liability. So therefore the other 4 guys can't be. In Miami, we saw this, Hero and Robinson were getting picked on all the time, and then Strus to some degree. So they had to, Robinson got benched, right?
Yeah, I mean, the discussion you're referencing is about player archetypes that have gone extinct, and there's always going to be exceptions. The back-to-basket center is pretty much dead, but obviously there's Joel Embiid. It's not you can't win with Joel. What we're saying is that these are the types of players that you don't pay big money to, that are basically going by the wayside. There's going to be these guys in the league still. There's some of these guys are talented, but
Greg Monroe,
agree,
baby.
Yeah, exactly. I do agree in general with the thesis, which is you really can't play a lot of shorter, smaller guys who can't rebound and can't play defense. Because at least when you get these big oversized wings, even if they're not terrific defenders, they're helping out on the glass. They just get their arms up. Get your arms up.
Wancho's a good example.
Right? Yeah, get in lanes. Who cares if you can't guard anyone one-on-one, your feet are slow, you get crushed in the post. As long as you're long, you move around, it's still better than being a guard who can't play defense.
Max brings up the sharpshooter archetype, which is another perfect one that burned out immediately, right? The Davis Bertans, the Robinson, and I feel like there's a couple of others I'm probably forgetting, but that quickly flamed out. It's like you can't play a lick of defense. You literally can't even play in the regular
Mhm.
season. Duncan Robinson I mentioned, but if maybe some others. I know there's at least one other one. Steve Kerr was mentioned in the
Steve
chat.
Kerr.
Yeah.
Steve Kerr is getting crushed in today's league for sure.
Oh yeah, he's getting picked on so badly.
Like I think Fred VanVleet is having like really high efficiency post possessions against Steve Kerr. That guy was like 175 pounds soaking wet.
Yeah, Kyle Lowry's ass would just swallow Steve Kerr whole. Like
Matt Thomas, that's a good point.
Matt Thomas doesn't count because he never even got paid. Like he couldn't even. But yeah, I get your point. Anyway, that's a long way of saying that Gary Trent Jr. is our Can-Am Taxman of the night. We now have 2 sponsors. Please support both of them because it means that we get like a dime instead of doing this for free. CanAmTaxman.com. CanAmTax.com. You can go visit them. They'll help you with your business taxes and personal taxes. They're a great partner of ours, and we're proud to have them as a sponsor. So, okay, we'll go to questions, and then we're getting the hell out of here. We have a couple already put on, or I held on to. What does Scotty need to do going forward, Kyle? That was asked by Azim Ali.
I think in general, the blueprint is basically assert yourself more with the second unit and try your best to be like forgiving of teammates and emotionally stable as possible. Because I do think like you're young, and if you're not earning the opportunities with the starters, then and you're still being given the opportunity with the bench, like, okay, fine, you don't have the opportunity with the starters, at least you're still getting the opportunity to run the bench. This is an olive branch by Nick Nurse and by like the other players in the team that you're being given the opportunity to run the bench. Some guys don't get that. Like, it's not like Chris Boucher gets that. So, consider that to be a benefit, and that's not, you're not being relegated to the bench. You're being gifted the opportunity to run the bench. And assert yourself confidently, and I think things will start falling his way again. I don't like there's like a weird thing with Scotty where like he won't take open shots when he's gifted them, but will force shots when he's not getting them, and it's like it's actually the worst of both worlds.
Yeah, he's started to become a little bit less decisive, and I think this is kind of happens when you have newfound offensive tools that you want to test out. I mean, we see this with Precious all the time. Scotty's discovered handles and a pull-up and a spot up to some degree, and he's relying on it too much. He's not going back to his bread and butter, right? Like, we're not seeing those kind of side post-ups, like weird sling hook shots anymore. And
wow, that was cool.
I literally have no idea what that was. Oh, it's phone. 1 second. Take it over.
You guys ever hear like a really old boomer guy's ringtone? That's like a very boomer ringtone. I hate to say it. That's like an 85-year-old man you hear at the gym when his phone
that was my
goes
partner's.
off.
That wasn't mine.
Oh,
So
I'm sorry. My apologies.
even though I'm the old man, it wasn't me. But anyway, a good segue to Trace's question is, why aren't we using our strength to bully ball mismatches with all the length we have? And this is what Scotty should be doing, right? Like, when you're in a funk, you go and grind your way into some layups, right? And like, Scotty has a literal advantage in every way against any player that guards him, right? If he's small or skinny, you take him down low. If he's fat and big, you rip by him the way he can, or then do the pull up. And I just think we're not, again, this kind of goes back to coaching, in my opinion. We're not being as tactful as we can be, or as tactical. And yeah, tactical. You can be both, right?
Yeah, that one wasn't wrong. You did. I think you're on high alert. You corrected yourself too much. You've gone too far. Does Nick Nurse use Manscaped? Yes.
Oh, that's a good question. I think he uses it on his face.
Yeah, which you can, by the way.
Yeah,
they market them as like the nether region trimmers. They're just good face razors that you can like purchase for less money than you would like a Phillips or whatever. I'm just
You
putting that
even-
out there. I don't
they
know if they
supplied
want
us
us
with
to say that.
They supplied us with a nose and ear hair
I
trimmer
know,
too,
I
which is
know.
like the ultimate boomer tool. But
I don't know. Some people need that. I might need that.
yeah,
Should get the nose hairs trimmed
well,
up.
part of aging is hair out here, is for sure. Any more questions that anybody wants to ask before we get out of here? I know a lot of questions around trades and trade deadline. I don't think we're going to address that right now, just because that's always the like crunchy question, and we need to wait a little bit, see what kind of opportunities arise from other teams. I think obviously Gary's the nominee here. He's got the Norm Powell situation going for him, and he's the odd man out as far as payment goes. And we just talked about paying offensively minded guards. So that's all I'll say on that. This is a good question. Is it possible? But Richard Earl says, "Is it possible that we've misprofiled Scotty, and as a result, the frustration is on the coaches and not on Scotty?"
I guess, but also like he did win Rookie of the Year. It's not like this guy's a role player who we're trying to play as like a
But that's his point,
superstar.
is that like we aren't casting him in the right light that we did last year.
Do you sense there's a big difference in like the type of usage he's getting? I think there's a difference in volume, maybe, but I don't think his usage has like been altered. He's actually like he's been a better distributor than he has last year. I think part of it is just like he's in his second year. He's not working as hard for those second chance opportunities that really like he was basically eating on in his first year. And that's to be expected because the guy's more established in the league. He doesn't have the same sort of drive, and they've been in the playoffs. He realizes this is December 1st and probably isn't as engaged, which is like whatever. Everyone in the NBA does this, so I'm forgiving.
I think so. This year he's at 21% usage, and now one last year. I do think like they have run less stuff for him this year. He was at 19% usage, so he has more usage this year than last year. But again, it's you're right, like you're saying, it's the type of usage, and I think they've run less stuff for him. Like there was a lot of posting him up last year, getting him in the elbow, running him off like screens to dribble handoffs and things like that, getting him into motion. And again, it goes back to this idea that, Scotty's grown as an offensive player, which is great, but now he's relying on it too much as other coaches. And I think they're learning by letting him learn on the fly. Seems to be the thing the Raptors like to do, but it's just really frustrating to watch that when we're trying to win ball games. Phoenix asks, you think we win this game if we give? I think we do. If we give Siakam peak Harden usage and run everything through him, I think we should grind that to the ground. We already play him 40 minutes a game. Why don't we give him the ball 80 possessions and just see what happens? Like we saw against Cleveland, score, assist, foul draw. Like that should be happening constantly.
Yeah, I was actually going to mention this earlier, but sometimes people will just like check the box score or will only catch a part of the game, and there'll be questions like, "Oh, well, Siakam had like X amount of points early. Like, why did he not get the ball later?" And it's always like, "Okay, well, they rotated, or they shrunk his side of the floor, or they were bringing doubles, or whatever." But in this case, they just went away from him, which is so weird to me. Just like there's no real excuse why he didn't get up like 35 shots today.
No, it
didn't make any sense.
His teammates just didn't go to him anymore.
Yeah,
and it wasn't malicious, but they just decided to do their own thing.
Yeah, I was actually kind of baffled because like almost every time there's some sort of excuse. It didn't feel like there was an excuse. He just got frozen out, and he's supposed to be the alpha. He's the guy who will be an all-star in this team. Health, if he's healthy, I should say. But they just got frozen out of his own offense. And this should just be his offense. He should be the one commanding everything. I want him in charge of everything. And it's frustrating seeing a guy who's way more accomplished than anyone else on this team getting completely shunned by his teammates.
Yeah, I agree. But the silver lining is we know it can happen, and in the playoffs when we're dead and out, like that's going to be something uh, we can rely on, which is something we've never been able to do really. So that's encouraging. But yeah, that I agree. I think he got iced out. It was weird. It was very obvious, scoring 9 straight points and then nothing. Just didn't really make any sense.
They had no. Okay, so he scored 9 straight points. They weren't bringing doubles. He gets an ISO post possession, like against Herb Jones, where they finally bring a double team. He's been scoring well. They finally bring a double team, one double team, and they never go to that again. Like at least just like that's actually good. You're generating, like you're shrinking the size of the floor. If you can like get it to a matchup where a double's coming, like don't you want that? Isn't that what you want as an offense? Don't good offenses hunt that kind of stuff? Am I out of touch?
No, 100%. To teams operate. I mean, that's how Dallas operates.
That's how good teams. That's just, like
Yeah.
for the actually people in general have been talking about like the evolution of the NBA, and they try to create these like larger narratives about like, oh, it's about 3-point shooting. No, it's about like positional versatility. Actually, no, it's about like people's like defensive versatility. But ultimately, like I think one of the bigger stories of like the recent NBA, I'd say the last like 7 years, so sort of starting with those like Cavs Warriors series, is that like uh, hunting matchups has been more prevalent in basketball than I think ever before. Like guys, teams will hunt matchups offensively and seek out doubles and work off of doubles like never before. And a lot of that was for a lot of time you couldn't even double team realistically at all. Um, but this is how good offense operate. Like almost every good offense, with the exception of the Warriors, who are just so unique and weird, are operating out of like find a double team, let the double come, and work off of that. Like I don't get why the Raptors aren't willing to do that when they're being gifted by the Pelicans. Like here's a double. We're going to shrink it. We're going to leave an entire side of the floor wide open. Like what's going on?
I mean, they do typically like rely on a lot of isolation. So they do, but I guess they're not as thoughtful as we would like with like who they're getting in isolation and where. But really, I mean, tonight is just like Pascal literally could not be stopped. Herb Jones
No.
is an all NBA level defender of forwards, and he was just getting sauced. Like, I don't know, it's crazy.
It's also it's a spacing issue as well. The Raptors are not.
Yeah, if we're not hitting shots
tremendously,
we're frigged. And Brian Scalabrine was saying on the Zach Lowe pod, another thing is about being able to bend defenses over and over again, which we have trouble with, right? Like Pascal's the bender, and then on secondary, tertiary actions, it's kind of I think OG and Freddie can do that, and Gary to some degree, but yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but we do have the playmaking. I just think it needs to be centered around Pascal a little bit more. Pascal or Scotty, I think those are our two main playmakers, and Thaddeus, and we need to be running more stuff through them. Get them more involved in the center of the. I mean, Scotty can take pointers from Pascal. Like Pascal gets the ball, he takes one giant stride, and he's in the middle of the floor, and it's just like it's daylight wherever he wants to go, and Scotty's got to learn that.
I like how you snuck that in there. Some things never change.
What?
I think we gotta. I think on that note.
What, Thaddeus?
I think on that note.
Dude, Thaddeus has been playing great.
I agree. I don't think whatever. Who cares?
He's a playmaker in a
Top
limited
3.
way. All right, we're signing out. That's the 55-minute mark. Thanks everybody for joining us. Please like us and subscribe to us. Yeah, go take care of your groinal needs as best you can.
Wrap up. That's it.
That's good.
RAPUP.
That's like it doesn't matter. Okay, that was your poor Raptors experience tonight. The New Orleans Pelicans smashed the Toronto Raptors 126-108. The next game are we in Orlando? Is that right?
I believe so.
Does anybody know? No, Brooklyn on
Oh,
Friday.
yeah. Sounds like a fun time.
I won't be there. I'm away for the next 10 days. So hopefully, Kyle, you can attend. And yeah, peace out, everybody.